Hello and welcome. In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to conduct a conjoint analysis. Let's jump in. So what is a conjoint analysis? By definition, a conjoint analysis is a statistical technique used in marketing research to determine how people value different attributes of a product or service. And what that really means is that in traditional marketing research, a survey is used, right? Many of us, I'm sure, have taken a feedback survey when we get a product or we utilize a service. And we're typically asked to rate the product or the service on a scale of 1 to maybe 5. But what that doesn't account for is the trade-offs that we often make as consumers, right? So the survey may say, how important to you is price? 1 being the most important and 5 being the least important. And I think most of us would say, oh, I consider price heavily when I'm making a purchase, right? We want the best value available. However, oftentimes when we're faced with other choices about a product, we may weigh price differently or not as heavily. And so the survey technique doesn't account for that decision-making process in the real world. It doesn't really capture how consumers actually behave when they're presented with a product that has multiple features, or they're looking at the features as one package, if you will. So a conjoint analysis asks the respondents to evaluate product profiles against one another. And these profiles are different combinations of the product attributes. So in this way, a conjoint analysis more accurately reflects and captures the customer's decision-making process. And it also helps marketers and businesses identify the relative importance of each attribute. And what's key there is once the importance of these attributes has been identified, we can start making some really informed decisions to develop different pricing strategies, to look at the type of product we're offering, to slim down our product offerings, or really refine our product offerings to ensure that we are understanding what customers are willing to pay for, and then creating products that really align with our customers' values. First step in any analytic analysis is collecting your data. So here we have some data from a candle company, a fictitious candle company. We're going to call them Oberon's Candles. And you can see that Oberon's Candles is offering a variety of different options for their candle. We've got some different glass holder options, some different branding options, price point, color, and then whether or not the candle is going to be scented. As you can imagine, we can come up with a lot of different product profiles based on the attributes we have here. That can create a lot of challenges for us when we go to take this information to consumers, right? We can create what's called respondent fatigue in our customers. What that really means is that people get overwhelmed with the number of choices, and then that denigrates the way and the accuracy in which that they're responding to the survey. So it's considered a best practice to limit the number of product profiles, and industry standard is about 10 to 18 product profiles. So to avoid having too many options for our survey takers, we're going to use a method called orthogonal. So the orthogonal method, again, was designed to help when the situation would result in product profiles that would exceed 20 combinations, but it helps ensure that there's a balanced representation of each attribute because it ensures that the attribute is represented an equal number of times. So you can see here that we've put together our 18 profiles. And once these were created, we asked the respondents to rank each profile from 1 to 18, with 1 being their favorite combination of attributes. Then each of the rankings for the profiles were averaged, and you can see that those average ranks are there on the right-hand column. So let's jump over to Excel. Okay, so here we are in Excel. In order to conduct our conjoint analysis, we're going to rely on a regression analysis. And if you remember, a regression analysis shows the relationship between 2 variables. However, when we have categorical data like we have here, when we have non-numerical data, we've got to help Excel out. We've got to give it some numbers to crunch. And so in order to get these categories, these non-numerical values, to be something that Excel can recognize, we are going to perform a dummy coding. So I've copied our table over here into a new sheet just so we've got some space to work. And so here were our 18 combinations. And then I've created us a dummy coding table here. So the first column I like to have when I'm dummy coding is this combination reference column. And this is just so I can easily go back and see what product profile I'm talking about in this row. Now in dummy coding, we use 1s and 0s, 1 to represent yes or is, and 0 to represent no or is not. And so when you have an and or situation like we have in color or scent, we have 2 choices. It's either pink or it's white, or it's yes or no. That becomes very easy to code. But when we've got design, branding, and price, where we've got more than 2 categories, there's a little extra step we have to take here. So we want to create a reference point. So for our purposes here, I'm utilizing design A as our reference point. My price is $1.59, and then my brand style 1 is my reference point. And we're going to use this reference point a little later in our conjoint analysis as well. As you can see up here, we've got the other categories, the other attributes listed here. So we're going to go across our product profile. We can see that in the first product profile, our design style was A. So we come over here in our dummy coding, we can say it was not design B. So remember, 0 means no. So we're going to mark this as 0. It was not design C. So we'll mark that as 0. It was not brand 2. So we mark that as a 0. It was not brand 3. So we mark that as a 0. Coming over to price, we can see, aha, yes, it is $1.19. So 1 represents yes. So we're going to put a 1 in this column. It was not $1.39. We mark that as a 0. Looking at our color, we can see in this first profile that yes, it was pink. So we'll mark that as a yes, a number 1. And scent, we can see it was not scented. So we put that as a 0. So again, 1 means yes, 0 means no, and we'll do that for all of the combinations for all of the attributes. The next step before we can run our regression is to inverse rank our profiles. Now, the reason we do this is because we want to try and avoid negative coefficients in our regression analysis. And that contradicts with the way we have been conditioned to answer surveys, right? So when we answer a survey, we want the lowest number 1, to indicate the best. However, for our regression, we want a big number. We want 18 to indicate the best. So in order to do this, we're going to go ahead and use a little formula here. We're just going to use 19 minus the original rank. And the reason we're doing that is, again, we have 18 categories. We want 18 to signify the most favorable category. So 1 minus 19 is going to give us 18. And you can just drag that all the way up and it'll give you your inverse rankings. So now that we have our dummy coding and our inverse ranks set up, we can go ahead and run our regression. To do that, we're going to go over to our data tab and we are going to select data analysis. So we're going to select regression from the list of data analysis tools. And then for our Y input, we're going to select our inverse rank and we're going to include the label here as well. And then for our X values, we're going to select our attributes. So what we're looking for, what we're asking Excel to show us is the relationship between the rank and the attribute. All right, so now we've got our summary output from the regression that Excel ran for us. So I've got our reference back here. Remember this from earlier. And I've created our conjoint analysis table here. So for each of the attribute, we've got the different levels, the different choices here, and our reference point is always going to be a coefficient of 0. So I've done that for each of the different categories, and then we're going to take the coefficient from the regression output for the other selections, the other levels. So for design B, our coefficient from our table here was 8, design C was 4.5, and we did that for all the attributes here. Then we're going to take the range within each category. So to do that, we're going to use our max and our min formulas. We put equals max, select that, and then we're going to select all of the levels here, close our parentheses, minus our min. And again, we're going to select all of the values within this category, close our parentheses, we hit enter, and that gives us a range of 8. So we can then copy that formula to all of the other categories. So next we need to find the sum of all of these ranges. So to do that, I used our sum formula here. So equals sum, and then you can hit control and select each of the ranges, and this will add up our ranges for us. And we got 23.6 repeating. And we're going to use the ranges of each category to find the level of importance. And so the level of importance is the weight that consumers are subconsciously putting on each attribute. So to find the level of importance, we're going to just take the range and we're going to divide it by the sum of ranges. So for design, that is 34%. We did the same thing for brand. You can see the range divided by the sum of ranges, we get 8%. So what this can tell us right now is we can see that the elements that were most important to our consumers were the design of the glass, the price point, and the scent. So let's go ahead and take our best, our most favorable from each of the ranks. So we've got that here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this information. Let's go back to our original offering and let's take a look at what our consumers were in favor of. So they were in favor of a frosted glass. They were in favor of only having the candle say Oberon candles. They were actually really in favor of this price of $1.59. They were more favorable to pink if we had to have a color, and they were definitely more favorable to the candle being scented. So based on our conjoint analysis, we can see that our customers are maybe surprisingly, very favorable to paying a little bit more for the candle. And so that could indicate that we have a very strong brand loyalty. We've got customers that really value the brand and are willing to pay a little bit more for us. And so Oberon candles can then leverage that in their pricing strategy. We can also see that, color, it really didn't weigh as heavily as some of these other options. And so it's a consideration that maybe this white candle offering can be excluded from the product line. And so lots of good information can come out of a conjoint analysis and can really help us understand what our consumers are finding valuable in a product. Thank you for tuning in today for this tutorial. I hope that you found it helpful, and I wish you all the best in your marketing endeavors. Until next time.